his power bill was like $1,000 a month, and he was making like no Bitcoins. Like it was costing him so much money. He's like, but they're going to be worth something someday. I was like, cool, man. Sounds really interesting. I hope that works out for you. And it did, dude. It did. Yeah. It worked out for him in a big way.
Oh yeah, he's fine. If he was mining in 2010 or 11, he is fine.
Hey guys, what a great conversation. I've got Aaron, I've got Rob. We talked about money. We talked about the creature from Jekyll Island, banking, St. George, how all that stuff comes together. It was awesome. Tune in.
Jeff, you told me we had to have Aaron chat with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you do that, Jeff?
And then he read me the text message. I was like, yes, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Let's go. So, I mean, we both read Creature from Jekyll Island 6 months ago, maybe.
I mean, I've listened to it twice.
Yeah, I listened to it once and then listened to it again.
Your eyes are open.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I can't remember where like the initial thought came from, but aside from maybe us just chatting about like, hey, who should we talk to? And it's like we were chatting about that, and then I remember it had to have been 2 years ago when you and McCrae and I can't remember who else it was came to one of our Friday morning meetings, like mastermind meetings, and we just like talked about crypto. And afterwards I was like, whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
So then, and then, we see each other at the gym every now and again,
Sure.
And just name popped.
I remember that meeting very clearly. And I don't even know how I ended up like at that
I think it was McCrae.
McCrae might have.
I think what happened is,
sure.
So Brandon is a finance guy, and he's like, I truthfully don't really know a whole lot about crypto in general. And I think McCrae had been coming to a couple of the meetings, and he's like, I got a guy. And then
that's funny.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to McCrae, it's like 2015 when we first met about crypto. He had no idea. And so I'm not taking credit because he learned way more than me, way faster. Like as soon as he got into it, he dove so far into it. I had to pull back. I had to get out of it because I'm like, this is consuming so much of my attention and time.
Yeah.
I need to be able to like provide for my family. Like if I'm looking at my cryptocurrency every minute of every day and just obsessing about it, I had to stop. So I pulled my head out of it. But it's always, it's almost like the creature from Jekyll Island. Once you hear it, you can't stop thinking about it.
Yes.
It doesn't just like, oh yeah, I think I remember reading that book. Like if you actually read that book, you'd be like, I can never look at the world the same.
Like even if he's 10% right about some of his claims and some of his research, it's still crazy.
Yeah. The pure facts, or cited facts in that book would change anybody's mind about anything.
It's
not even
mind-boggling.
It's not even a question of fact.
Even just how banks work.
It's been going on. He's had that book for what, 20 years? He wrote it.
Yeah, there's a new revision that's out. It's been updated, so it includes commentary on 2008 financial crisis and other things.
He hasn't talked anything about what's happened post-COVID and the $4 trillion they pumped in the economy.
I don't recall that being inside the latest book, but that's a whole nother.
Can you imagine talking to
continuation of the same?
Yeah, this is the continuation of the same. It's like you're watching this in time. You read the book, and it takes you back in time, and it brings you to present, and then you watch it play out in real time. It's wild to see all the moving parts when you understand the fundamentals of the banking institutions and how they were created.
Yeah, yeah, banks. The average person has no idea what banks do. Mm-hmm. And I always have this like running joke. I have 5 children. I have this running joke with my children. As we drive through a street in a town, we always look and I ask them, I'm in construction as well. I ask them like, hey, that's a nice building. What do you think they do? And we pass the car dealerships. Hey, that's a nice building. What do you think
Ooh, that's
they
a fun
do?
game.
Yeah.
Hey, we pass this really nice looking office building and it says Adobe on the top. Mm-hmm. Wow, what do they do there? I wonder what it takes to own something like that.
Yeah.
And, this is something we take for granted. We pass these banks every day. They're on the corner of Main and Main. Mm-hmm. They're in the best locations on earth, downtown Manhattan, on some of the most prime real estate. And we just pass
River Road in George Washington.
And how many of them are there
on
that road? So this idea is like, Next thing you know is you're like, wait, what do these guys do?
Yeah.
And my kids asked the question one day. I said, well, they're money changers. They're money dealers. What does that mean? And that's when you get into this Jekyll Island and you start realizing, oh my gosh, I know nothing. I didn't understand until you read that book, the true model, the profit model behind money and money creation.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So Jeff said something about cryptocurrency. All your assets are in crypto. Is that true?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're comfortable telling me.
That's like
I don't know if I did.
Well, no, I remember that's probably the one thing that I remember from that meeting is you mentioned that, and to what extent, I'm not sure, but I just remember you saying like mostly everything that you have is in some sort of cryptocurrency.
You're right. So OPSEC is out the window for me. I've been out in the open educating in universities or my private.
Yeah, your
groups.
pronouns are holder, right?
Yeah, hodler.
Hodler.
Yes. If you went to my
holder spelled incorrectly.
Yeah. Hold on to dear life, right? Hold on for dear life. My LinkedIn profile, my pronoun is hodler because that's exactly the definition of me. My entire net worth is denominated in Bitcoin exclusively. I am not a cryptocurrency. I used to be in lots of different cryptocurrencies.
This is my phone ringing. That's so funny. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
You probably didn't even hear it. My bad.
Yeah. But I quickly learned about all the different facets of Bitcoin back in 2015, 2016.
Oh, sweet.
At the time, I was the treasurer of St. George City. And part of the job as being a treasurer is taking excess tax dollars in our city that are sitting somewhat idle, waiting to be deployed on projects. And you have to properly account and also you have to properly utilize that cash. So you're in a liquid position that you can quickly jump on that project or deploy cash as fast as the city needs it.
Specifically, I'm guessing utilities.
No, so like there's a lot of funds in a city that are there. Let's say we have a recreation fund, we have a fire department, we have an airport, we have all these different funds, and they have individual budgets that have projects that need to come, and those are capital improvement projects. Say we need a new runway. Right. Well, you don't want to just all of a sudden say, oh, we need a new runway. By the way, that's $300 million. Right. What you say is, we'll need a runway in 15 years. We need to start collecting bond or cash or money, taxes, and we need to be able to set that aside. So at this point, we can start that project. So just cash flow management, just like a business.
Right.
But the difference is with the city is large sums of money. That money has to be protected. It has to be put in a bank, just like any other business would have to do. And you would want to demand some type of return. But at the same time, protecting taxpayer dollars is highly regulated, more so than anything else. You just can't invest in any type of investment. So you invest generally in gold, CDs, or bonds, and they're very safe, conservative assets. And when I was in that position, I learned about money because these are agency bonds like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. These are U.S. governmental bonds, different 8-year, 10-year, 20-year notes. And you're purchasing those notes and you create basically a ladder of investment. So at any given time, those investments are maturing at the rate that you need the cash.
Right.
So learning about those investments, I was exposed to Bitcoin pretty early. I was exposed to new money. And because it's similar to gold, there was that argument. And that's when I learned about it. I learned about it about 2015. And that's when, after I learned about what it was.
So you took the position in St. George City before this or after you kind of were aware of Bitcoin?
No, St. George City, I had been working in finance. That's my background. I've been working in finance across Washington City and St. George City for about 8 years. It was when I was the treasurer of St. George City, in about 2015 is when I got exposed to Bitcoin in a real way. I'd heard about it.
Okay, got it.
That's when I started studying actually, like, okay, we're going to deploy some tax dollars in this investment. And I started like, okay, do I put it in a bond? So I put it like, what is the best thing as the treasurer?
So you looked at Bitcoin as an option. Is that what you're saying?
At that time, no. I was not at all looking at deploying any tax.
But just understanding Bitcoin as an asset.
By default, you got exposure to what is this thing over here claiming to be digital gold? Because I was investing in those types of assets as the treasurer, and someone said, "Well, did you look at this?" And I'm looking like, "What is this thing?"
So who was like with like I was exposed to it by a guy I worked with at Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon in 2009.
Wow.
2009.
The day
he was
that's
running.
The year it was created.
He was building. Dude, this is a fact story. I promise you. He just worked with me. He closed a restaurant. Glenn is his name.
Shout out to Glenn.
Shout out to Glenn.
He made a lot of money.
Oh,
And
Glenn's
I
fine.
think he's in real estate now too.
He's not working at Lone Star anymore.
I think he's still in real estate. Yeah.
So Glenn is the Lone Star.
Glenn is Lone Star. He asked me, I asked him a million questions about it. His power bill was like $1,000 a month, and he was making like no Bitcoins. Like it was costing him so much money. He's like, but they're going to be worth something someday. I was like, cool, man. That's sounds really interesting. I hope that works out for you. And it did, dude. It did. Yeah. It worked out for him in a big way.
Oh, yeah. He's fine. If he was mining in 2010 or 11, he is fine.
So I think of like that Bitcoin moment. It's like when you're exposed to what this is and what it means, the blockchain, understanding, some of the fundamentals, it's another one of those things. Like you can't ignore it. So you're exposed in 2015. Who told you about it? Like, how did you find out?
No. Good question. So this is a shout out to podcasts. It was a radio show / podcast called Free Talk Live. And Free Talk Live is kind of some libertarian-minded people that do a radio show that was playing on the local stations here. Okay. It was the AM stations, actually. And in the front end of their pitch and the end of their pitch, they were always asking for donations in Bitcoin. And I was like, who are these guys? Like, what are they asking for? What is this Bitcoin? This is ridiculous. And they had a couple guests on here and there that said they were going to do it. And the whole idea behind Free Talk Live was propagating the Free State Project, which was moving a bunch of people from across the United States to New Hampshire. And through the legislative process, getting enough of a populace of libertarians there to capture delegations and then capture seats because the population was small enough that they could actually do it.
Wow.
So everybody...
What a vision.
Yeah.
I could ask a million questions about that.
That
is incredible.
It is incredible. And they're actually they had this long project, and that's where I got exposed to Bitcoin, the idea. And then after that, I started reading because I read everything. And I just, once I opened my book, the first book I read was The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, and absolute incredible text. That is the definitive textbook on Bitcoin, period. And that's what I give out for free now. When I meet people want to know, and they're really interested, I give it out. I've met the author a number of times. Incredible individual, very, very smart. He has 3 more books.
I think during the meeting when I first met you, I went to Amazon and bought it, and then I read it, and probably didn't give it enough attention. But I learned a lot about, because the first maybe 3/4 of the book is just all about the history of money.
Yeah, that's good.
Very interesting.
That's the thing that makes that book so powerful, is like Jekyll Island, the creature of Jekyll Island.
Which is like the history of money, but then so much more. It's not just that simple. It's insane.
It is insane. The history of monetary policy by Federal Reserve creation is the creature of Jekyll Island, where the Bitcoin standard comes into play is primitive money. So starting out with trading things like shells and bones,
commodity,
commodity-based trading system, barter system, then to tokenization, and then after that, some you get into the higher technology monies like metals, silver, gold, and those things. Then we get them past that, and we start looking at, we have this gold we carry around. Now the bank's going to hold it for you. They're going to issue a note. Then we have...
Because that way you didn't get robbed on the street, right? You're not carrying all this money around. You want it to be kept in a safe spot, because now, you accumulate enough. Burying it in your backyard isn't the best option. Yeah. So you go give it to a bank, and the primary job was to secure it. It was just to secure it. Make sure nobody steals it.
That's right.
And then they started stealing it.
Well, we're all lending it out. Yeah.
We're all familiar with the story, the narrative, because we watched. It was a Robin Hood, right?
Exactly.
You got the little entourage with the horses and the guards carrying around the trunk of gold, and then all of a sudden the arrows start flying, and all of a sudden the trunk of gold is gone. And the most risky part of having any type of gold is the tax collector coming by and taking it out of your bag or under your mattress, or Robin Hood and the Den of Thieves coming and stealing your gold from you directly
Right.
as you're transporting it. So I'm glad you brought this up because I use an analogy with this. I think is fun to talk about. I teach a class. My son actually started a Bitcoin club at Desert Hills High School.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
And he had me come in.
How old is your son?
He is now graduated. He's 18. He just left on an LDS mission to Ecuador.
I was going to ask you, but I didn't want to interrupt it and stop you. How old are your kids? I want to know about you too, and I know everybody else is curious too.
No, you're good. So I started at 19 years old. I got a boy, and then every 2 years after that, they go down. Cool. 5 children, 3 girls, two boys, and they're my world.
Way to go for doing your part, man.
I love
you did your part. You and Jeff, you guys are doing your part. Thanks for carrying out my low number. I appreciate that.
I mean, knowing what I know now in this world, would I have more children, even if I was 20 years younger? It'd be hard. I'd be hard pressed to make that investment because you want to provide for them. But back to the story with my son and this analogy with gold. Gold has physical properties. Money has a physical property, and this idea of it can be stolen or lost. What I did as part of that demonstration is I brought coinage. I brought, I think, $300 in pennies. And $300 in pennies.
It's a lot of pennies.
Is a lot of weight. I think it's over 130 pounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I brought it, and I had, I had the $300 in pennies. Then I had a credit card. Then I wrote a check for $300. Then I gave a QR code to somebody, and I invited the kids up, started them on one side of the room, and I simply asked them to transport the money from one side to the other side. And we went through the reasons why it was difficult for the guy with $300 in pennies to move as fast as the guy with 3 $100 bills, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about a check, and then we talked about it clearing, and we talked about credit card instant transfer. Now I expanded their mind out, and I said, hey, the classroom's not the limits here. What if you needed to send this to China? What if you needed to send something to Africa?
Yeah.
How are you going to move this money? And that is one limitation on physical money that makes Bitcoin so promising, is this idea that it doesn't have physical properties. This idea that if I come with a gun and say, hey, Jeff, give me your money.
Give me your gold.
Give me your gold right now. And you say, no. I said, Jeff, I'm going to shoot you. You say, no. Boom. Jeff falls to the ground, and I take his gold and I walk off. Mm-hmm. But with Bitcoin, if I come and say, give me your Bitcoin, Jeff's like, screw yourself. I'm not going to give you anything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I shoot Jeff. Well, Jeff's password for his Bitcoin dies with him. And there's no chance in any circumstance at which any computer or group of computers could ever guess his password. So therefore, the Bitcoin is permanently gone. Yeah. And the incentive for violence or to capture that and thieve it is gone.
Yeah, now, something you said real quick, though.
That was my thought.
You said there's no way for a computer to figure out the number in that person's head. Mm-hmm. Why can't they figure out that number from your perspective? Why wouldn't a supercomputer just figure out the number eventually?
Yeah, so Bitcoin uses a algorithm called SHA-256, and this algorithm is basically used to convert a string of numbers into words. And these words put together consist of the password for Jeff's Bitcoin or for my Bitcoin. But this number is very, very long, like extremely long. When we're talking about how long this number is, you would have to properly guess a number that is 2 to 256. So in terms of size, in terms of length, for you to guess that number properly and guess the amount or know the address of where that is and compile both those together and push it out there,
right,
it'd be nearly impossible to do. You would be guessing, and that's exactly what Bitcoin miners are more or less doing. They're guessing at a very large number.
And they get rewarded when they figure that number out.
Yeah, basically. And as they mine Bitcoin, the process in which they mine Bitcoin, which is different than what we just discussed about passwords, but the actual equation that they use to compute a solution to the hash algorithm, or to the difficult, or I should say, the mining algorithm, for them to get that number and to secure that Bitcoin, They literally have to guess the number properly. And the first one that does that, they're the one that gets the block reward. They're the one that moves on.
Right. So then, from my understanding, though, is those account numbers. So you have a vault of where you're going to put your money in that would be hosted on your own server, right? Your own computer device, essentially, right?
Well, Bitcoin is a network. It's a decentralized open network. And the network itself, right? I don't carry around Bitcoins with me. I carry around the keys or the password to be able to move that Bitcoin inside the network. But the network's on the cloud, distributed across all of those computers running the Bitcoin network. So it's really speech. When you talk about moving Bitcoin, you're saying a number or typing it into a computer that constitutes the password to be able to unlock one Bitcoin cloud security vault and move it into another cloud security vault. So you're not actually possessing anything physical. And that's what makes one of the attack vectors against Bitcoin so strong. Governments can't come and say, whoa, you have it. You have this thing in your hand. I can see it. I can feel it. It has weight, has mass. It's not. It's speech. That's what it is.
So this might be a completely different direction than maybe what you wanted to go. But how would theoretically the government collect taxes on somebody, not specifically you, but somebody's whose entire net worth and money transferring systems is all based on Bitcoin? Or in other words, how do you pay taxes on it? Or do you?
Same way you would any other currency.
Good. That's the answer. I love it. You're right. You're exactly right.
They're just saying you owe me money, and you have to prove to me what you owe me.
And you have to calculate it. And if you're wrong, we're going to
tell you. And we're going to tell you.
Okay.
And if you don't do it, we'll put you in jail.
So I was overthinking it then. Or in other words, if in 2009, Rob bought 100 Bitcoin, and I don't know what the math is, but now he's got $100 million.
I have to disclose that I did it with Bitcoin. That's what I still have to disclose the act of the transaction, right? Which is what the taxation.
Yeah, if you're selling it. Yeah, if you're selling it, you absolutely have to have it. But if they never, if
it's not a realized gain,
you know what? That's just it. Like when I say governments across the world, right? They're just now piqued interest in Bitcoin. They're just now getting to the point like, whoa, wow, we need to pay attention. For a long time, they're
too late.
You guys are hooligans. Like, what are you doing? You take your little free internet crazy money.
The banks have already bought in, though, right?
Oh, they have now.
They're already bought in. So the government's this is the biggest thing, right? Is that I think the biggest debate or the biggest battle ahead of us is that crossover where the politicians and the banking bigwigs have to decide on path forward. And it wasn't since the creature from Jekyll Island that this opportunity was here. Is that kind of a good way of describing it?
Yeah. Well, before Jekyll Island, before the meeting of those people for their duck hunt, before that all happened in Britain, or I should say in Europe, it had already been captured by the Rothschild family.
Right.
So it's been going on for this idea of centralized control of money or value has been going on for way before Jekyll Island, way before our country.
But our government didn't get taken over until that point by that federal institution.
Well, they ran away from Europe.
Yeah, from Germany.
Because they didn't want to be taxed onerously by Mother England. That was the whole reason.
By the socialists, too. By the socialists.
You guys know what the Boston Tea Party, what the tax increase proposal was?
What was
I forget it.
2%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 2%. But then... So
we pay more of that in sales tax.
I went back to this point, and I keep getting fact checked. It's like, it doesn't have anything to do with the percentage. It was that they were taxing us without representation. Right.
It could have been 50. It could have been half.
Well, but my point, the follow up point is, they were pissed about that, and we are getting pillaged in the exact same way right now.
Worse, yeah.
But the percentages are in triple digits.
And we're all okay with it.
And nobody is throwing anything anywhere. Everybody's just fine. And that's the thing that freaks me out.
I honestly, I push back on that. We're all okay with it. We're not. The reason why we're standing here and the reason we're sitting here and the reason why Jekyll Island, that book's done so well, and the reason why Bitcoin exists is because we're not okay with it. Yeah. And more and more people's eyes are being opened more and more as they actually think about what's really going on. Centralization of money is super scary. And I do feel like there is a opportunity like unto the Boston Tea Party that we now have tools available unto us to force a ethical monetary policy upon our government, upon our banks, etc. Fiat currency cannot continue to survive when it's competing against a stronger, more powerful, more ethical, more just money. Yeah. And we're seeing that.
Good money always drives out bad. That is a direct quote from E.W. Griffin.
Yeah, you got it.
Good money always drives out bad. And it was probably not stated by him originally. I think I heard that in Economics 101 is, just the fundamentals of a capitalistic society, which is what we are. Good money always drives out bad.
You're right.
So eventually we're going to get there. It's just understanding what is the growing pains to make that change. And I don't know what that is. I'm not smart enough to know.
So in other words, today's modern day Boston Tea Party in what actually happens, like what are the
we're gonna get canceled on this conversation.
Maybe.
Keep going.
Isn't that how
keep
you know
going.
you're doing something
just
right?
Keep going.
This is not investment advice. Let's just say it.
I hate that. I'm not. I don't know a financial advisor anyway.
Look, we're just talking. We are now of the age.
I cut him off. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I'm sorry. I joined in. We're at the age right now where we need to change the way the system is going if our children are going to inherit anything.
Yeah. 100%.
So keep going where you were going.
So the spokes that kind of make that up, the whatever it is, the timeline, the vehicles, the spokes that are involved in turning bad money to good money. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Aaron, but what you're saying is what that looks like is banks going away and everybody using Bitcoin.
Not exactly. Actually, I think there is space for lending, and there's
going to be a function for the transfer of money.
Yeah,
there's a function for that. It might not look exactly the same as it does today, but the idea of a bank, we're still going to need a transformer, right? It's like taking the electricity or taking the energy and distributing out correctly, right? Because even Bitcoin scaled out can't handle the number of transactions that the American economy does in a single day.
Sure.
Right. So it doesn't have the computing power to do that, but there are cryptocurrencies that do have that capability. And different areas might adopt different cryptocurrencies based off of their infrastructure within their local economy, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look at how money is today. Money is not only the US dollar, right? You have,
and it's a transaction fee. We're paying transaction fees to do this electronic transfer of money already. It's already there.
Oh yeah, you pay $4 to go to the ATM to pull out your own cash.
Exactly. It's just not built on a network that keeps people from being able to steal each other's money.
Yeah, the bigger thing is it keeps people from being able to print money. See,
the Fed.
See, yeah, we can go back to the Fed a little bit here, but let's talk about how we produce anything. You and I wake up and we start eating, let's say, Cheerios. Okay, where did the Cheerios come from? Well, we can trace it back to, whatever. Whole Foods or whoever manufactured General Mills. Thank you. General Mills, they have this farm and they harvested the wheat and they do all this stuff. Well, where the wheat? Well, the sun, photosynthesis. So there's actual energy being placed into basically live plants that is being harvested. It's being put into Cheerios. That's real work happening. That's real energy being transferred along the chain. I'm eating it. You're eating it in the morning. I go willingly to my employer and say, I'm willing to give you some of my mechanical and mental energy in exchange for this dollar, this fiat currency. We come up with a contract called the employment agreement. We say, yes, we go after it. I start working. They pay me. I take this and I go buy more Cheerios. That is like a big process. And there's a lot going on there. But what about the guy that gets to print the same dollar I have to take a shovel and expend the calories I got from the Cheerios, I actually have to turn the shovel for my employer to get the money back. But the printer, they're not subject to such things.
He's just sitting there.
All they got to do is they got to come up with the paper and the cost to run the machine. And
but they don't even do that now.
No, they don't. They do it digitally, which is even better. It's even cheaper for them. But the point is we have we have to consume actual calories that actually went through a process of energy transfer in order to get our dollars. And then we save these away for our future and hope that they're going to be there in 20 years when I need to retire, or when I need to take care of my children's cancer, or when I need to do whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm. And the problem is the printing press, specifically the Federal Reserve and our government, together have decided that they can print willingly as much as they want when they want. And they can choose who is the recipient of such dollars that are printed. So we're really working hard for the few calories we have to expend in an 8-hour day. They press the print button or the digital print button. It's the same amount of money going into my paycheck, and magnitudes more coming out of the printing press. But that's the crux of it, is every single person that has to earn hand to mouth their wage is in competition with this entity that gets to print willingly as much as they want because it's a centralized system. That right there is the key to which I feel that we're all frustrated with. We don't understand why our dollars are losing money, or losing value, I should say, losing the ability. It's not like I build homes for a living. It's not like the homes I build are built out of better products or more dense wood or more expensive items. In fact,
or less swinging of hammers.
Sure.
Or,
it's quite the opposite, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
exactly.
That's what in the creature from Jekyll Island, one of the arguments is there's no reason why a stud for a house should be 1,000 times more expensive today than it was in 1898. It's the same stud.
Same stud.
Should be cheaper.
Manufacturing process and technologies dictate it's cheaper to get it to the end user. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. But instead, what's happened is the tool that we use to measure value, at least in the United States of America, which is US dollar, that has been fluctuating, and it's fluctuating and gyrating more than it ever has before.
Okay, so we could get real deep into this. And what I want to bring it back is St. George. Mm-hmm. So you're the treasury in St. George. Mm-hmm. You were there, it seems like, for like a year and a half?
Yeah, yeah.
So what made you leave?
Somebody else came to me and said, I value you more than St. George does, and therefore I'll pay you more money for your hour of expended Cheerios.
For
and
your
I
energy.
was like,
I'll pay you more for your
I'm game. Let's
your
go.
Game. So during that,
we're partners.
During that year and a half or whatever it was, give us some insight as to the way cities spend money. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, as a community, what should we understand about how the city spends money? And would you say that it's stewarded properly? And I know this is not to put you on the spot, but just to say, hey, from my perspective, this is what my takeaway was with my 2 years there.
Yeah, my takeaway from local, Southern Utah governmental expenditure, we have two incredible cities. I'm going to speak for two, Washington City and St. George, because those are the two I worked with and have direct experience with. I think in both instances, they have impeccable records of keeping track of how funds are expended, how they're utilized and deployed. In terms of those control systems and how money is taken in and expended out, fantastic. They do a great job. Many of the people that I worked with they're still there, and they do a phenomenal job.
They don't lose money. They don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of management of money, in terms of management of counting of those funds, deployment of those funds, warranty bonds, the way that our investments, they're very well managed.
They haven't accidentally sent money to Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think
maybe.
so. I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
Indirect way, yes, I could argue that.
Right.
But I guess what I'm saying, they're also audited by third-party auditors in the private sector. that come in. Hinton Burdick, a local company here, is in charge of the audits during my time. They come in and they audit. And so the city's subjected to the same, actually far more rigorous auditing procedure. And then
one of the city council members that was running for office this last time around said that they needed a different kind of audit. Like, not that the money was going to where they said it would go, but audited in how well they do spending it, like what they're spending it on. And is it like that's the appropriate ways they spend it? Is that what you think? That's what
I remember that argument, and it's too subjective to say that. Right.
And so that's where I'm like, I don't know if when I hear those things, what an audit is. You're talking specifically though about money comes in and it goes out for this specific project, and that's exactly what happens.
I'm talking about accounting and treasury management.
Perfect.
I'm talking first, and we need to talk about that first, just to make sure that you know that in terms of control measures of watching that cash go through our governments, I'm very confident in what we're doing there. Mm-hmm. Now, what you're referring to is the money that we're being taxed for, or is the money that we're spending, is it effective in producing a higher quality of life?
The politics of it.
Yeah, that's like the word bridge. That's where the bridge is, right?
Should we be buying this fire truck?
Is government enhancing the residents of St. George City? Is it enhancing their lives by deploying their tax dollars effectively?
Right.
Now, that's the subjective part, in which you could say, well, to this politician, wow, that park was the best thing that ever went in. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember an argument a long time ago. You know, the Ferris wheel downtown that we had? The Ferris wheel right downtown St. George.
The carousel?
The carousel.
Carousel.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
You're good. You're good. I said turtle instead of tortoise one time and never heard the end of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for all the Ferris wheel carousel people. So the carousel downtown, that was a very interesting purchase at an interesting time. I recall the amount of flack in the newspapers and also online and Facebook about this. I think it was $300,000. I can't remember at the time how much money we were going to spend on this. And it's going to there. Now, one politician may say, that is absolutely not the role of government. They should have never bought a carousel. Why are we spending our money there? Mm-hmm. Next person would say, hey, that's been a staple to downtown. Ironman event, arts festival, you name it.
It's on stickers and T-shirts, and it's the coolest thing about this.
Kids love it.
It's a buck, right? Isn't it $1? Yeah. Like, so,
it's awesome.
And what do we have here in St. George in terms of amusement parks or anything similar at all? Yeah,
nothing.
Right.
So there's that guy would argue this is the best thing ever, and so both sides can have their debate, and that is what we deal with every day.
They might be both right, and that's why they drew up the Constitution the way that they did, so that both these ideas can compete in elections. Yeah, right? And that's the point.
No, it's a great side note to point that we do have a great process by which getting elected.
It's arguably
Democratic,
the best process. There's no other process.
The world would argue it is. Most of the countries would argue, yes, America is the ideal scenario.
Yeah, and you can argue with, okay, do we get education right, or do we get health right, or do we get transportation right, or do we get all these things right or wrong? The Constitution, we have right. We have to utilize it and use it from the same mindset of the people that were at the Boston Tea Party, right? The 20-year-old, kid, literally a kid, James Madison, writing these insane, editorials, right? Where they were op-eds,
op-eds,
essays, and talking about the creation of this country. And they thought through every single aspect of it, and they got it right. We just have to use it the way it's written up, and we've gotten so far off track.
How smart do you have to be to leave Mother England? And how much risk do you have to take? And how focused, how laser focused do you have to be to make that whole journey to live in this new promised land of freedom? Like our progeny, the people who did this for us early on, they produced the James Madison. They produced they're the most incredible concentration of genetic code I think I've ever seen. Because
that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, because you think, but even take it as we pushed west, the people who settled the West were the absolute most savage, insanely smart, the
dedicated, committed.
They were the mighty men of the Bible. They're the mighty men of the Bible, right? They're fighting bears and Indians left and right, and the ones who survived that, They were the toughest of the tough.
Yeah. So James Madison, more or less a savant, the way he speaks at 20 years old.
The way he's thinking down the road of how these different, the social aspects of, he included slavery at his young age is legitimately mind-blowing.
When you read the text,
I feel like a mental infant, honestly. Like when I think about it, I'm like, I'm 37 and barely understand what he's writing about.
Oh, it's embarrassing, crazy. Right? You really start thinking about it. You look at yourself and you feel somewhat embarrassed. But you also have to remember that system was produced off of sound money, meaning the savings that they had was in a universal unit of value called gold.
It actually existed.
That existed. And could not be manipulated easily.
Isn't in The Creature, doesn't he talk about how Massachusetts tried to run their own and they went to fiat currency like almost immediately and they collapsed it almost immediately?
Oh, there were several currencies that collapsed.
And this was pre-colonial too, right? This was before 1776. So they had gone through, the economies of these people that built the Constitution. They'd gone through all and made all these mistakes already.
Yeah, it's important to note here, because you're bringing it up, that money predates government.
Right.
Money predates, or I should say, it happens organically between two people that otherwise need each other in a community to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where barter came from in the very beginning.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And some would argue that
it's fundamental.
The relationship between a man and woman getting married, that in itself at its very, very core is this exchange of needs and wants. And it's for the betterment of both. And so when you look at that,
it's energy back and forth.
Yeah.
It's energy back and forth.
Imagine someone coming in and printing that energy and screwing it all up. Yeah. And that's what we have. As long as we have sound money and we know that that unit of value is not changing on a regular basis. I mean, imagine if you're building a house and you pulled out a foot and it was actually 16 inches today. And the next day it was 17 inches. And next thing, 18 inches. And by the way, your government's like, hey, in 30 years, you're going to retire. You better start planning for how much you need today. It's like, well, how much do I need? Because every time I pull the measuring tape on a US dollar, it's worth less and less. Sometimes a little bit more, less, more.
I think I need $1 million, but
how can you possibly plan with a unit that changes? Science, in every other aspect, if you were to build a boat like
Science
this,
would debunk
it would leak and it would sink to the ground.
Yeah, and you'd never make it out into the lake.
Try an airplane. Go ahead and build an engineered system that's not closed, that's not tight.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to just fudge the numbers and just mess around and find out, see what happens.
And this is the lack of courage or a general. It's not going to be my problem. Like, why do you think we continue to play along with the system, even at the very top? Why are they all still?
Because you don't
stringing it along.
You don't have the time and the freedom like James Madison did, because he actually, when he worked and he put some money in his pocket, that money in 20 years was going to be worth the same amount he put in his pocket, if not more. Money was actually, instead of losing, inflationary. It was deflationary in the sense that it was harder and harder to get, because you can't print gold. You can't just print it. It takes a shovel. It takes big,
Exactly.
So the point is he actually had time in a sound monetary system to be able to do things, because he wouldn't lose value on the savings he put aside. And that's the problem we have today. You can work so hard, put away $10,000, $20,000 in the bank account, and in a matter of 5 years, you're going to go back to work, buddy, because that's not enough money to even go to school anymore. That's not enough money to pay for a house.
The real world example now is groceries, right? I mean, 5 years ago, $100 of groceries for one person could probably last a month, and now that $100.
We've gone through this even. I guess maybe we hadn't really ever gone through it, because really the last time this happened was in the 70s, and that was after Nixon had taken us off the gold standard, which basically untethered the whole thing, right? It's like the one rivet, the last rivet holding the plane together, when he took us off over 3 days at Camp David. There's a great book. It's called 3 Days at Camp David. It's him and 6 guys.
Read it.
You read it?
Oh, yeah.
It is incredible. It's incredible. It helped me understand international monetary and how it was like impacting the United States, because I just hadn't considered that. You go through Creature Jekyll Island and I focused on America, just America and American monetary policy, but I wasn't really thinking what is the franc or the yen or the yuan or the pound or the
Peso,
euro or whatever,
all of them.
how they impact our dollars and how they were impacting our dollars with stagflation, funny word that just popped back up all of a sudden, but we had stagflation back in the 60s. Nixon wanted to win an election. The economy was the best way to do it, and he pulled the last rivet. And once he pulled it, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. We can't do that. We can't go that way.
No.
We can't go back to gold. Do you believe that?
The pin has been pulled in terms of trust. The Bretton Woods Compact, or the agreement between other nations using, I should say, the U.S. dollar being the premier currency of the world. That, and then all these secondary currencies having to buy their energy into U.S. dollars or having to interface with the U.S. dollar, that has just produced a system of untrust and mistrust. I don't think any of these nations, unless forced or compelled to through monetary violence, are ever going to come back and say, yeah, United States, yeah, we trust you. You made these agreements. We negated those agreements.
Yeah. Libya is a great example of that. Right?
There's a lot of great examples of that. And the way we've handled COVID, honestly, is continuing to drive home that same message. Truthfully, I think, because I think the brunt of, if we think it's bad, we have to recognize what's happening in the third world.
Oh my gosh. It's
if the fact that we don't talk about it, I think that's something that people need to be talking about, is that this inflation is happening to the third world times 100.
Magnitude's worse for them.
And they're not going to be happy about that.
Yeah. The one thing that they have, I think, over us is that, would you rather grow up or be in a society who is surrounded by people that are already humble and living in that circumstance? Or would you rather live with second and third generation people that have just been the benefactors of all of this manipulation for decades?
Silver spoons.
And then all of a sudden they lose that ability through inflation quick. I think, unfortunately, our societies are going to get increasingly dire straits. They're going to get difficult because these people don't know what it's like. We here do not know what it's like to live hand to mouth. And if that ever happens,
and they're not happy about it.
If that ever happens, God forbid it happens, but if it ever happens, I would much rather already live or be around people that are already living at that level, because it's going to be really hard for mom and dad and grandma and grandpa to say, hey, we don't have enough money this month for this or that. United States is in an interesting situation.
I think people don't talk about why these people are coming here from all over the world. We talk about immigrants all the time. Nobody's asking, well, why are they coming here?
Yeah,
it's just because America's so great.
But why?
You could do anything you want here.
Why do you think?
There's no rules. I could steal $2,000 worth of items in California, and they won't even arrest me.
Yeah. I think it's 900, sir.
Well, for me, it's not even.
I think they moved it to 2,000. I'm not even kidding you.
Should I fact check that?
Perplexities on it.
For me, it's not about even the stealing aspect. It's clear that they're looking for something better.
Wherever they were from is significantly bad enough that makes them want to travel the Darien Gap that's littered with corpses and risk their own lives, because being here is going to be better than where they're at.
Well,
they're coming here because they need somewhere to go.
Sure. That whole sacrifice you just mentioned, that tells you that is easier or more efficient than the life they're living or where they're at. Oh my
gosh. It's perfect. That's a perfect point. Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of scare tactics out there to say, like, oh, these people are coming. They're just like stealing bags from stores.
It's so unfair.
They're not. That is the minority of the minority. The truth is, most of these people are coming up, earning a better wage here, sending it home, and killing it for their families in these different countries.
Yeah,
and God bless them for it, because I sincerely believe that that's exactly what my progeny did. That's what, in the early days when they left Mother England, they came out here for a better life. Anybody that's searching for a better life, my LDS heritage, they were looking for a better life. Kirkland, Nauvoo, Salt Lake. People are looking for a better life. I have no problem with any person. It doesn't matter who they are, looking for a better life. And I think that's an incredible thing. The thieves need to be dealt with, no question.
But there's thieves in every society.
Oh, 100%.
There's no society without thieves. And our idea that, our culture is without criminal activity is so arrogant. right? It's like, oh, well, you're not from here and you committed a crime. That's worse.
We started
It's like,
the podcast describing banks. They are a criminal outfit.
They are legitimately a criminal outfit.
If you read and do your research, we started out the white collar crime right in front of you.
There's a reason the mafia operated the way that they did, and they were successful for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And so the idea that the banking system, maybe not a criminal enterprise, but a mafia enterprise that we are all accepting and willingly participants of.
It's a cartel? Yeah.
It's a cartel. And so we wonder who's pulling the strings. It's the banks, everybody. It's the banks. And if you go back to World War II, Nazi Germany was upset, right? I'm testing some weird waters here. But the Jewish bankers were, the idea of the Jews, right, was the bankers. They were mad at the bankers. Whatever the label that they are, they could be, I don't care where you're from, but if you're a banker, you have to recognize that that's what people are upset about. And that's what it was in World War II.
Last time I checked in the New Testament, if you're a believer in Christianity or Jesus Christ, the one time he got angry.
Jesus is my homeboy.
And he flipped the tables of the money changers sitting outside of the temple, of the temple.
Inside the temple.
Yeah. To get in the temple, you needed to buy a prayer token. Oh, conveniently, I have a table set up and I'm willing to exchange whatever gold you have for this prayer token. So if you want to talk to God, I'll make the exchange rate. Yeah, and we'll set you up right away.
So the banking institution is who we should be upset with. And so then how do you see a path forward? What do you think? Because, there could be people listening like, okay, so what? What do we do about it?
What am I supposed to do?
What are we supposed to do about it?
Like, I got a check from my employer and I walk into the bank and I deposit it, and that's all I know. So
you've gone to Bitcoin.
Yeah. First, you need to learn about money. And money, dollars, pesos, yuan, gold, land, bonds, stocks, Bitcoin, crypto. Mm-hmm. Okay. Money can be anything. Here's a pair of Oakleys right here. Okay. If these started, right now, I think I could go to, let's say, Maverick and exchange this probably for a 5-gallon thing of gas with somebody. I think I could do that pretty easily. Somebody would be like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll get you the gas, right? Mm-hmm. What if it started raining Oakley sunglasses, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many would land on the ground? How many would you pick up before you stopped picking them up?
1 pair.
I'd probably pick up a good 100 of them. But once I started to see 10,000, a million.
I look sweet now. I'm good.
And you're waiting through the Oakleys. Eventually, everybody has a pair. Supply, demand. They're worthless.
Mm-hmm.
So when you study money, you have to start looking at what you're storing your value in. Right now, most people, it's fiat currency. And they're thinking, oh yeah, if I just go get these dollars and I'll hold these dollars. But we just talked about the money printer. And it's raining money down.
Yeah.
Trillions, right? That money flushes out in the system. And that $100 bill they print is the same $100 you put in your mattress. And it dilutes the value of what you hold. So, So if I had this 1 or 10 or 100, it's worth quite a bit. But as there's millions where everybody have access to it and more out in circulation, this becomes worthless. That is what's happening. Right. So what's the solution? Is when you expend your Cheerio calories each day and you get your paycheck, you store that money in something that cannot be easily recreated, right? It took hard work and a bowl of Cheerios for you to expend the calories to get that money. You have to be investing and putting your money in something and storing it in something that cannot easily be replicated.
Like
that's first step.
Yeah. Like an old BMW.
Yeah, that's great.
Needed brakes and
as long as it's a 5 Series, I'm fine with that.
Like the fuel, the fuel filter thing in the where you put the gas in. Mm-hmm. What was that thing? That was ridiculous. All the maintenance.
If you fix the money, you're going to fix the world inherently, because what's going to happen is that unit of measure for your future will be more reliable, so you can plan.
Yeah.
And with proper planning and hard work and not a devaluing savings, you can build a future. You can plan a future strategically. You can have the funds necessary in your treasury at St. George City to be able to build that carousel or to build whatever you want to build, because it's not losing or devaluing faster than you're able to save it or earn it.
Right. So what do you think, if I was the city governments, how do they deal with it?
Yeah, so city governments are like I mentioned before, they're in investments that are pretty liquid investments. The bond
But
market,
dollars or no?
the bond market, bonds themselves, U.S. government bonds, is the largest market in the world in terms of volume. So that means it's pretty stable in terms of its value day to day. Now, I could argue over the last 5 years, 10 years, it hasn't been. In fact, it's volatile. It's scary.
But they're banking on the 10. They're banking it 10 years from now. It's still going to be solid. We're still going to be good.
The point is, you put, let's say, $1,000 in for a 10-year bond, you get paid $1,000 out in 10 years, guaranteed, plus some interest during that period of time. So the larger the network, which bonds, stocks, land, the larger the network, meaning the more participants in the network and more distributed that unit of value is, the more stable and less volatile that unit is. So governments will invest in very specific investments, cash, bonds, things that are very liquid. So when they do mature or they need to be sold, that value is there to deploy immediately. Nominal value, $1,000 for $1,000. They're not looking to get the gains. They're not looking to get the interest as much. They need to earn interest because it is real money sitting, but it's not as risky as what everybody else is driven to do, which is right now is they can barely keep up with the inflation. So what they're doing is take their money as fast as they can and deploy it in many different investments they can and getting more increasingly risky so they can get the money necessary to survive and to continue to grow. They're trying to beat the inflation rate, which we call the hurdle rate. You have to jump annual inflation, and then whatever you make on top of that is what you will save.
Right.
Most people don't make enough in their average investment to jump the inflation rate. Hence, their savings is losing value year after year. That's where we don't want to be. That's how we fix this problem. That's what's happening to our poor country right now and has been since 71.
So back to my question though. So what is the city as we transition? I think if we're going to go from the premise that digital currency, whether it's Bitcoin, name whatever the name of the currency is, as we transition into that kind of a system, how do the cities transition in that system? Do you think they all have to go at the same time? Does it have to be like the federal government is now is a digital currency at the federal level just inevitable?
No, usually, I mean, Arizona passed a law years ago to accept Bitcoin as payment for taxes. Usually what happens is the monetary unit of work for cities is the US dollar. Okay. So basically, essentially, any way that they can convert to US dollars, sure, they'll take it. Donation charities, churches, religious organizations, they're going to adopt a policy of accepting alternative assets, not just dollars, and they're okay with it. You can donate a car, right? Cars for kids, right? So increasingly, you're going to see more and more people, more and more banks, more and more institutions, more and more businesses, more and more governments, more and more insurance groups accept these as forms of payment. And that's happening in real time. This year, first of the year, the ETFs were launched. This is the largest ETFs in the world, and we're deployed with more funds invested in a 6-month period than any other ETF ever to exist. I'm telling you, it's happening in front of our eyes in terms of the actual deployed capital, units of value, sitting in an alternative investment other than dollars. It's going into Bitcoin.
So I feel like as that is more and more adopted, the dollar's going to accelerate in its inflation.
You're right. Because
I posed this question to Jeff, where does it go? I put $1 in, I get Bitcoin, then it makes me money and then I get it back. And then I have $100. How did my dollar get 90 here and come back in to the economy? That's inflationary. Am I missing something about how that isn't automatic inflation?
Yeah, we're just thinking about money wrong. What do you do when you go to
I'm thinking about it wrong?
Okay.
Help me.
Let's break this down. When you go to Wendy's and you buy a hamburger from Wendy's, what are you doing?
I'm giving them a medium of exchange for the burger.
For the burger.
Right.
You're giving them X amount of something. You're agreeing on a price, right? They happen to advertise it, but you're saying, okay, for $8.39, I'm going to buy a double or whatever it is, right? You are exchanging that. What happens? They are saying, we want to buy dollars. You're saying, I want to buy a hamburger.
Got it.
All you're doing is exchanging.
Right.
So what happens with Bitcoin? I'm saying, I want to buy your Bitcoin. You're saying, I'll take your dollars. Eventually, hard money or good money versus bad money. What we talked about that. What ended up happening?
Pushes out
right?
back. Okay, got it.
So why does fiat currencies fail? Because people try to sell them faster, right? For things that are appreciating in value against it.
So then that makes sense. So now you have a built up currency base that's now going to additionally flood the market. Is that what we're saying? Is that like all that cryptocurrency that isn't being used to actually exchange significant goods and services, when they do come into the market, in addition to dollars?
Value is value. Like we just talked about exchanging my Oakleys for some gas.
Okay,
right?
Right.
We can do this with anything.
Okay.
We can exchange some time tutoring this studio that we're in. Maybe, we're paying them to use a studio or something. We can exchange time with them, barter for barter. We could use dollars to exchange, or we could use my tutoring efforts in a piano class for their kids.
Right.
It doesn't matter the units. The point is the market is deciding which unit is worth most.
Got it. Okay.
Supply and demand, right?
I'm tracking, yeah.
So unit of value is just, or I should say dollars, fiat currency. Dollars is just one unit, and it's controlled by an international banking cartel that set up shop here. And it has infiltrated so perfectly well that from the age of 2 years old, my children, all of them, knew what a dollar was. And I never taught them one thing about it. But they knew mommy and daddy devalued it. They knew that I could take this and get some candy with it. And that's all it takes. And so the network of the US dollar is so massive and so big and so widely used. By default, we are programmed to say that this is the only way to do it. But we just talked about how people left Mother England and figured it out without England's currency.
Right, right, exactly. Well, man,
we could just keep going and going and going.
Deep is the rabbit hole.
I was just thinking as you were talking about your kids, and I'm sure your kids have said this, but it's like and with my kids, I'll say, hey, I'll or my kids will come to me and they'll say, hey, Dad, what can I do to earn $10? And I'll say, oh, you can, I need you to go outside and chop up some branches from this tree that I cut down for a couple hours, and I'll give you $10. And they're usually like, that's not worth it. I'm going to go play my Xbox. Right. So that's where like this generation of kids, like they don't value that. Is that just my experience? Is the idea of money just like fading away?
Are you saying that you didn't do that when you were a child?
I think every time I wanted to do it, they told me to go pull weeds, and I was like, nah, let's just play wiffle ball. Dude, we threw pine cones at each other.
Skateboard.
We threw pine cones at each other, and we used a wiffle ball bat. We hit home runs.
Maybe a lot of it is just
instead of pulling weeds.
Maybe a lot of it is just cultural, because in my mind, I was like, whatever I got to do to go make.
Well, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Every family's going to have a different set of.
Well, it's like I had a buddy
motivation. What's the exchange value, right? Yeah. And so it's like if I got to do that, or just not have the money, I don't really need the money. I'm not hungry. I'm not cold. I'm not thirsty. So I think every generation, and depending on your own financial, socioeconomic situation, it's gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah, right. I had a buddy,
but every culture's had it, right? You think?
Yeah. You have to unfortunately, I think not allowing our kids to work before they're 16 years old is one of the dumbest policies ever.
Yeah, right. I was just talking about this.
I think it's almost made to help enslave the public even more.
I think, I understand why we don't want sweatshops and like young kids working at an extreme young age when they should be in school. But 16? Why 16?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's interesting. Should they be in school? I mean, should they be?
Right. Yeah.
Great question.
And what is school? What are they teaching?
Right.
Is
Maybe
it possible? Is it possible to teach in such a way that we pay them based off of their performance, their ability to learn, and it reciprocates on themselves? So they get smarter, they get more efficient, they get they're able to earn and understand the value of money. One of the things I've done really well in my family, I think, is always give those opportunities for the children to be able to earn the money. And then you have to choose one thing that they have to pay for. It could be a pet. It could be a Netflix subscription. It could be an Xbox subscription. There has to be something that they have. Okay, you want to go on a trip with the family?
It's a great idea.
This family, in order to go on the trip this year, it's $500. You have, if you want to go, get the $500. If you don't, then you're going to stay at grandma's house. The rest of us are going to go. We want you to come. We'll provide as much work as you need to make it happen.
It's a great idea.
You must do this. If we're not teaching the kids the value of money, guess who will? The banks, when they hand them a credit card and say, if you just swipe this, it works every time.
Exactly.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It is scary. And they don't teach this in school. They don't teach this to kids in school. Because why would they? Why would they want that?
So you've got high finance, right? Like you watch these Hollywood movies, The Big Short, Wall Street shows. Maybe you've delved into Robinhood or something like that, and they've got these things where you can, you buy an option, right? Where it's got this contract that I'm going to buy it or I'm going to sell it. You've got puts and calls all involved in the stock market, right? You've got shareholders. You've got all of these things.
Does Bitcoin eliminate that?
Does Bitcoin make high finance more complicated? Does it make it simpler? Does it make it go away? Can I still buy stock in a company if it, with Bitcoin? How does that change high finance?
Yeah, that's a lot of that question. Honestly, 30 minutes, and there's a lot there. But puts and calls, futures markets is just determining price. This is 2 people, 3 people, 4 people coming together and saying, in 30 days, I think the price is going to be this.
Right.
You're saying, no, I think it's going to be this. And all that is price determination. That's all happening. That's basically value being decided on.
Speculated. It's speculation.
Yeah, well,
gambling.
It's not gambling. It can be perceived as that. It's literally someone saying, I think that the value of the dollar at this date or the value of that stock at this date is going to be X.
Here's my contract for that.
And you're saying, oh, no, I think it's going to be this, or you buy the other side of that.
Okay, I'm following.
All it's doing is determining what the actual price is going to be. And over time, that gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Meaning if you're buying a call or a put 1 week from now, the spread's not very big.
For sure.
Right? Just most people don't think of it that way, that you're literally negotiating with with another party what the price is going to be in the future. But this is how we discover what price really is. So will that go away? No, it absolutely wouldn't. And it shouldn't. I feel like that there is a market for that.
There's a function to that.
There's absolutely a function. Price discovery is something that's very important. We want to know what the current value is per capita for everybody. Where is that at? That's a thing that we can use to plan upon. We can go forward. But what Bitcoin does is allows that to be more predictable because there's not this outside entity printing dollars and just putting them into the system.
Right.
That could screw your puts and calls all up. And the discovery of price could screw that whole thing up. And that's the problem we have. We don't know what this unit of value is worth at any given time. This is why we're experiencing these problems with our money, with our system.
This whole thing is super fascinating.
It really is.
We got to keep going. We got to do episode 2 on this one.
Yeah,
it would be cool to have a once a month money series because it affects all of us. It doesn't matter what capacity you're in, and we should talk generally about these different facets of rabbit hole so we can educate people about money.
I love it.
If we do it, it's going to benefit everyone.
Let's do it.
We should bring in bankers and finance guys to chat with us too.
Absolutely.
and debate back and forth.
I don't know. I can't debate with them, but they're.
I like bankers, to be honest with you. I think there's a function there, but the function of the Federal Reserve is what I'm not for.
Yeah.
So I'll State Bank of Southern Utah and all my friends, all those people, we need you. We love you. We want you. The problem is the unit of value we all use.
I appreciate you saying that because the bank being the Federal Reserve, I think is the main thing. Is this one bank is messing it up for everybody.
They manipulate it. They tell everybody how much they're going to pay for their credit card or their car. Okay, guys, that's crazy.
And it's understandable that we're in. We accepted it because it helps keep our lives stable at some capacity, but that stability is suspect at the moment.
Yeah, we haven't accepted it. We're here talking about it. It's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. Thanks, dude.
Thanks for the invite out. I had a great time. It was good to talk to both of you. And thanks for the people behind the scenes running the mics and doing everything.
Blue Form Media, you guys are the best.
You guys are great. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks so much.